As parents, when you think about the teen years, you've heard stories of what teenagers are like and how they're getting worse and worse and worse. But is it true? How do you parent teens in 2024? Well, I have the pleasure of being joined in studio by Adrienne Wood, who is from HeartSync.co.nz, to have a chat around this, around what we're seeing right now with teens and their screens, research-wise, and some tips for parents. So good morning, Adrienne. Thank you for joining me.
Kia ora, Kat. Good to be here.
Now, let's look at what's happening right now, because there's been a bit of research done and there are challenges facing parents when it comes to guiding their teens through a digital tech-driven world. So what are you seeing there?
Well, the interesting thing is the landscape has changed since we were teenagers back in the 80s and 90s. In our day, we were sneaking out the window, there was drinking, there was smoking, there was underage sex, there was all sorts happening there. And those risky behaviours, particularly substance use and whatnot, worried us a lot. Those behaviours that were traditionally risky are dropping steeply, often as a result of really good public health campaigning, which we've had in New Zealand. But the risky behaviours that are on the rise are happening online and out of sight of parents.
And why is this so concerning? Because you think about people sort of, leaving house, sneaking out the door, drinking, going in fast cars and, potentially doing misbehavior with other people that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, that's scary for a parent to think about that. Why is it so concerning, the kind of harms that they could expose themselves to online?
What's happening online is a world that we're not a part of. And the thing that concerns me most as a parent consultant is that our teens are getting into trouble with one another, going down rabbit holes that are really risky, and we're not at all aware of what's going on. So there is shocking and severe online bullying to the point that young people can become suicidal, and they're not telling their parents about it.
Wow, that's tricky. Do you think the rise of smartphones and social media has really influenced this landscape and has played a part in this?
Yes, it has. So the research that's coming out recently shows that since 2011, mental health problems such as anxiety have skyrocketed for particularly the adolescent age group. So they have risen by 139% for anxiety, by 100% for depression. But our New Zealand statistics are even worse. In New Zealand, our anxiety has risen 328% since 2011. Researcher Jean Twin looked at what on earth is going on here. She studies generational change, and she concluded that was the year in which smartphones became widely available for all young people and the rise of social media platforms at the same time. And she said this has created generational change, which has created an earthquake of a magnitude which we're still recovering from the shock of.
It's really interesting to hear these quite concerning stats, actually, because the thing is, we know how important our youth is when it comes to developing relational connections with people, how when we're young, when we're at kindergarten, like, for example, children that miss out on going to kindergarten miss developing crucial relational skills with other kids. And then you want kids on the playground growing up together, learning how to resolve conflicts, learning how to get along with each other. But then when you have this digital device that becomes your friend and your access to all things social, it actually shuts you off from that face-to-face connection. It really does change the way you do things. So there are a lot of challenges here with actually, I guess, connecting with your kids, because even now with a 12-year-old who has a phone now, we primarily got it for her so that she could tell us she was safely on the bus and safely at the bus stop for school pickup. But more and more I'm seeing that her head is down and she is engaged with that, and it's almost impossible sometimes to break that connection between her and her phone. So how can we as parents and adults and teachers help kids to realize that they need these critical human connections? What can we do?
Well, one thing that we're seeing, I work with the Newfield Institute, a child and adult development organisation in Canada. And what we're seeing, what is most concerning, is that what we call adult-rich vertical attachments in kids' lives is evaporating at the risk of peer-rich horizontal attachments. And when you mentioned before the playground, and if you think of young people running around in church communities and in just general social communities, there's always adults involved in their lives. So when there's a little bit of bullying, kids have always bullied. They've always been nasty to each other. This is not new. but there was always an adult looking over the shoulder saying, hey, that wasn't kind, you can do better. And or the one who was bullied, find their tears, give them a shoulder to cry on, and help regulate and support them through the crises, the many crises that they're hit with. When they start to move horizontally into this isolated peer-to-peer world, there's no adult oversight. There's no one saying, hey, that's not okay. Hey, that wasn't kind. Hey, that's not even true. You're not ugly. Wonder why they said that. That's not what I see in you. You're kind, you're compassionate. And those things we speak into our children's lives is what builds resilience. It's what builds the kind of character and values you want to see in our young people as they grow and develop through these turbulent years. The problem with screens is that it's driving them into a world which we are not a part of, and we no longer have the chance to influence, support, guide, and direct them through these tricky years.
What would your number one tip be for a parent that is struggling with this? Like the first thing to do?
So you would think I would say, how about getting some software on the phone to limit, and there's all sorts of protocols out there that we can do to help our young people manage their social media and device use. But actually, if you have a quite addicted, screen-addicted young person, my first piece of advice for you is emotionally connect. We need to pull our kids back into our radius of care and relationship. And that might involve you deciding as little as 20 minutes a day to spend one-on-one time with each kid in your care. You might go for a little walk with the dog and chat on the way. You might decide to have a regular cafe trip, or your drive into school. You might decide it's going to be completely device-free and this is your time to chat. All of these, or just sitting on their bed before bedtime and chatting about the day. These precious, precious moments of connection are how we start to pull them back out of that sometimes dark and dangerous world of peer attachment.
Well, there is hope. So thank you for sharing that information with us and some tips. And I know people can get more tips and get more resources from your webpage. So the best place to send people to would be?
www.heartsync.co.nz.
Adrienne Wood joining me from HeartSync. And if you'd like to find out more, you can go to heartsync.co.nz. Adrienne, thank you so much.
Amazing. I hope you enjoyed that as much as we did.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on so you don't miss the next video.
We'll see you in the next one.